Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be dealing with absolute value equations. Now today's objective, let's go ahead and write this down. I can solve and graph absolute value equations. Now an absolute value, what that actually means is an absolute value of a number is the number of units it is from 0 on the number line. Okay, and what we're going to do right now is do a couple of example problems. So we have A, B, C, and D. Right? I have all these absolute value problems. What I want you to do is write what they are equal to. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to do that and then we'll go over it. Okay, so the absolute value of -8 is 8. The absolute value of 5 is 5. Absolute value of -23 is 23. And the absolute value of 64 is 64. Notice all these red numbers are positive. And because they're positive, you know that absolute value will always equal a positive number, meaning that the absolute value of x will never equal a negative number. Alright guys, so the rules are the steps to solving a absolute value equation. Step 1 is that you have to isolate the absolute value, okay, meaning you have to get the absolute value by itself. Okay, now step 2 is you need to rewrite two separate equations. Now say that you were given the absolute value of x equals a. The two separate equations will be x equals a and x equals -a. Alright, so those are the two separate equations. Now what's inside the absolute value comes out of it and then there's no absolute value anymore. But then the number that it equals will become either positive or negative. Okay, another thing that I want to tell you about, because we did see it, if you do see the absolute value of something equaling a negative number, all right, this is no solution. All right, so absolute value can't be negative, so you would write no solution. Okay, now number 3, you need to solve for x, all right, and you already know how to do that from unit 1. And then step 4 is to graph the 2 points on the number line. All right, if you need to press pause to write all this down, go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to just go ahead and start doing number 1. All right, now for number 1, we have the absolute value of x plus 8 equals 3. Now step 1 is to isolate the absolute value. Now this is isolated, meaning if I cover up the equals 3, you can see that there's nothing outside of the absolute value. So therefore, step 1 is already done. We can go right ahead to step 2. And step 2 is to separate and write two different equations. Now, over here, you guys see how the x just came out, right? That didn't change. What changes is that you have the 3 will turn into a -3 and a +3. So this is what it's going to look like. Again, the x plus 8 comes out of the absolute value. You have x plus 8 equals -3. And then you have x plus 8 equals +3. All right, this is an OR problem because it can't be both, so you do have to put an OR in between them. All right, now what we're going to do is solve these, and you're always going to do the same thing for both equations because they're pretty much the same thing in the beginning. The thing that's different is what it's equal to. All right, so in both of these, you're going to subtract 8 from both sides. Now for the first one, when you subtract 8, you're going to get x is equal to -11. For the second one, you're also going to subtract 8, and you're going to get x is equal to -5. Okay, so those are the two solutions. If you wanted to make sure, you could actually plug it back in if you wanted to. So if you plugged in the -5 right here, you would have -5 plus 8, that's 3. Absolute value of 3 is 3. All right, if you want to put -11 here, -11 plus 8 is -3, and the absolute value of -3 is also 3. So that's if you wanted to check it. All right, now the last thing is to graph them on the number line. You do need to put them in order. The number that's smaller is the -11, so I'm going to put that one first. So -11 and -5, and then these are just going to be two closed circles again. There's no shading in this because there's an equal sign here. Since there's an equal sign, there's no shading. All right, if it was an inequality, that's where you would start shading some stuff. All right, now number 2, I want you guys to try this one on your own. The same idea. If you do need to look at number 1, go for it. Number 2 is the absolute value of 9x equals 3. So go ahead and do this one on your own, and then we'll go over it after you're done. All right, guys, so hopefully you got this one correct. So again, the absolute value is already isolated because if we cover up equals 3 over here, you can see that there's nothing outside of the absolute value. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and split them up to be 9x equals negative 3 or 9x equals positive 3. Now, it's a one-stepper again, so in this one you have to divide by 9 on both sides. When you divide by 9 on both sides, you're going to get negative 3 over 9, or you can just rewrite that as negative 1 over 3. On the other side, you're going to do the same thing by dividing by 9, and then you're going to get x equals positive 1 over 3. All right, don't forget the or, all right, and that's your answer. Now, if you wanted to check it, again, you can plug that back in for x to figure this out. All right, let's go ahead and put these on the number line. Negative 1/3 is smaller than positive 1/3, so that one would go first. Then we put our two closed circles. Again, there is no shading because this is not an inequality, it's an equal sign. Okay? All right, if you need to press pause, go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to number 3. All right, for number 3, we have the absolute value of x plus 4 minus 3 equals 0. Now, in this one, if I cover up equals 0, you can see that the absolute value is not isolated because you have a minus 3 outside of it. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of that minus 3. The way we're going to do that is we're going to divide both, add 3 to both sides so that they can cancel. All right, now this winds up turning into a problem that looks like number 1. We have the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 3. All right, so I want you to try to finish this one on your own. All right, and do exactly what we did in number 2 from this point. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this together. Now, since the absolute value is isolated, what we need to do is turn it into two different equations. Again, remember, what's inside the absolute value is rewritten twice. The thing that changes is what it's equal to, which is the 3. So that's going to be negative 3 and positive 3. Now, for this one, what we're going to have to do is subtract 4. That's going to get you negative 7. For the other one, we also subtract 4. And then you're going to wind up getting negative 1. Okay, don't forget to put the or and circle your answer. So this is what we get for number 3. Now we just have to graph it. The negative 7 is smaller, so I'm going to put that one first. So there's my negative 7, my negative 1, and then there's my two closed circles. Okay, all right, number 4. Now this one's a little bit different because we don't have, again, if I cover up the equals 20, we don't have something being added or subtracted. We have something multiplied to the absolute value. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of that 5. And since it's multiplying, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by 5 so that the 5's cancel. And then you wind up getting the absolute value of x minus 6 equals 4. Again, this turns into a problem that looks like number 1. Okay? I'm going to let you guys go ahead and finish it, and then we'll go over it. All right, so when you separate this one, again, the x minus 6 does not change. The thing that changes is what it's equal to. So we have negative 4 here, we have positive 4 here. Again, in both of them, we're going to do, we always do the same thing. We always, whatever we do to one equation, we do to the other equation. We're going to add 6 to both sides. That's going to get me 2. Over here, when we add 6 to both sides, that's going to get me 10. All right, so we're going to go ahead and graph these now. The 2 will come first because the 2 is smaller. Okay, if you need to press pause, go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to go to number 5. So I thought I could make it, but I ran out of battery, so we have to do it on here. We're going to finish it up on here. All right, so here's number 5. And for number 5, it says that the absolute value of 3x minus 8 plus 9 is equal to 0. And again, if you cover up the equals 0 right there, you guys can see that the absolute value is not by itself. So we got to isolate that right now. So to do that, we're going to have to subtract 9 from both sides so that it cancels out right over here. All right, and then you'll have the absolute value of 3x minus 8 is equal to negative 9. Okay, now again, hopefully you notice this. The absolute value is equal to a negative number. That cannot happen. Okay, because you can never take the absolute value of something and get a negative number. So what you're going to say is absolute value is never negative, right? Therefore, there is no solution. So this number line has nothing on it because there's no solution, okay? All right, now number 6, all right, go ahead and try this one on your own. All right, it says absolute value of 3x minus 6 plus 8 equals 14. Go ahead and do this one on your own and then we'll go over it. Alright guys, now for this one, again, if you try to cover up the 14 right here, you can see that it's not, you can see that the absolute value is not by itself. We got to get rid of this 8 right here. So we can go ahead and get rid of the 8 by subtracting 8 from both sides. That's going to give me 3x. The absolute value of 3x minus 6 is equal to 6. Now over here, we have absolute values isolated. So now we can go ahead and do the split. So we're going to take what's inside the absolute value, set it equal to negative 6, right? Or we're going to take what's inside the absolute value and set it equal to positive 6. All right, now this is a two-step equation. First step is to add 6. 6's cancel. You get 3x equals 0. And then divide by 3, and then we get x equals 0. Okay? So that's, now those are the two steps. You have to add 6 and divide by 3. Those are going to be always the same steps that you do on the second one. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. The 6's cancel. 3x equals 12. Divide by 3 on both sides, and then you wind up getting x equals 4. Okay? Those are your two solutions. So we're going to go ahead and put them on. The one that is smaller is 0, so the 0 is going to go first. Okay, so there's my 0 and my 4 with my closed circles. Okay? Now again, if you need to press pause, go for it if you need to correct anything, and then we'll go to the next slide. Alright, here's number 7. Number 7, we have negative 8 times the absolute value of x plus 7 equals negative 64. Go ahead and do this one on your own, and then we'll go over it. Go ahead and do that right now. All right, now to isolate this one, we have to get rid of that negative 8 that's out in front over here. So to get rid of this negative 8, what you have to do is you have to divide both sides. When you divide it, you're going to divide by a negative 8. Okay? The negative 8 will cancel, all right, and then you'll get absolute value of x plus 7 equals 8. All right, so now that we have that, we can go ahead and split them up. So when you split this up, you're going to have x plus 7 equals negative 8, x plus 7 equals positive 8. Now to solve this one, all you need to do is subtract 7. When you subtract 7 on this side, you wind up getting x is equal to negative 15. Over here, you subtract 7 on that side, you wind up getting x is equal to a positive 1. Now this time, we have a negative number, negative 15 goes over here, and then the 1 is going to go over here, and then we can go ahead and put our closed circles, okay? All right, last one, do this one on your own. For this last one here, we have negative 19 times the absolute value of 7x minus 10 equals 19. Go ahead and do that right now. All right, again, I hope you guys got this one right, and I hope you saw that you had a negative here, because when we have to divide by negative 19, all right, that negative 19 divided by negative 19 turns into a negative 1. And that should tell you right there, let's stop, this is wrong, okay, because you can't take the absolute value of something and get a negative, so the answer is no solution, because absolute value cannot be negative. This number line stays just like that because it's no solution, okay? All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow with some practice with this stuff.